Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
Welcome everybody to another movie commentary. Should we call it bad movie commentary? I don't know. Good movie commentary, video game movie commentary. And today I'm joined by Eric.
Morning, how you doing?
Doing good, all the way from the Isle of Man. And also joined by Vince. How you doing?
Good.
Excellent. So we've got this movie all synced up at the Hollywood Pictures logo. It's just fading in from black. We can see the silhouette of the Sphinx with the blue sun or moon behind it. That's where we're paused. Gonna give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1, play. And on play, you press play. And here's the countdown. 3, 2, 1, play. Hollywood Pictures presents. I miss those old-fashioned practical effect logos.
Yeah. Oh, the old Universal logo or the old MGM one.
Yeah. The infamous leitmotif. Now, Eric, you told me about this movie. I've never seen it before. It's my first viewing.
Yes.
Attempt number 3 or 4 or 5. But I on your suggestion, I watched that Gaming Historian documentary on the behind the scenes of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And fascinating. I would almost... I don't know which way is the best way to go, but I'd almost recommend watching the documentary before seeing this to see the zaniness that happened.
I think it's one of those movies where, you hear those troubled productions where it results in a really good movie like Apocalypse Now. And then you hear those troubled productions where it, results in just these unbelievably, I would say insane sort of movies. It's like there are times where you're not even sure what you're watching. And I would rate it among that.
So it starts in prehistoric era. I like the narration.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear. So we are going back in time with the effects here. And I passed on this movie because I was a big Mario fan, but by 93, I felt like they missed their, they missed the boat. They didn't strike while the iron was hot. Same with Street Fighter. And it also looked kind of dark from the trailers. It looked really like, here we go. It's already kind of dark and brooding.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's not Mario. That's not Donkey Kong. And then the reviews just sunk it for me, and I just never got around to seeing it. Fisher Stevens, loved him in Short Circuit too.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I'm really interested in seeing today is I'd always heard this movie's too dark for the subject matter, but like by 2020 standards, is this going to be fun and uplifting?
I'm not so sure. I think it's one of those ones where it's so bad it isn't even really a good bad movie. I think it's just circles right back around to a bad movie. It's been so long since I've actually attempted watching this.
It's so bad it's gloriously awfully. It's awfully good. I guess you could say this movie is awfully good.
That's a really good way of putting it.
This is my first time watching it too. I've never seen it.
Were you a Mario fan, Vince?
Yeah, I liked it. I remember playing the original Mario and Super Mario, but that was about it.
So there's an egg inside the.
So, was there a prequel to this, like called Donkey Kong? Like a super dark, stylistic dog.
Yeah, it was called King Kong.
Yeah.
I don't know. Generally, video game movies, like especially the early video game adaptions, you're just asking for trouble. How do you convert? I mean, it's one thing to try to adapt a book or even a cartoon, and some of the cartoons fare better because the lore was so rich, like Transformers. But with Super Mario Brothers, it's such a easy breezy fun concept. How do you adapt it into a 90-minute drama?
That's really the thing. It's like all those 80s video games. I mean, there were some good ones out there, some decent stories and everything, but I think when it comes to Mario Brothers, really it's a pretty shallow concept. It's rescue the princess, right?
Yeah.
So thinking of how you structure a story around that and how you create this idea of a character's journey and growth, and that's something that I don't know if I envy those writers on this task. I'm not sure what I would have done in that situation either.
This is a part I was really looking forward to seeing: real life Mario and Luigi as plumbers.
Yeah.
Bob Hoskins is I love the plungers on the wall.
Plungers, really driving home that plumber thing.
Yeah. And Bob Hoskins is a great actor. John Leguizamo went on to do great things. It's just there's something magical about seeing your old iconic heroes. Even by '93, Mario had been around a lot and was really entrenched in a lot of people's minds. To see him live and in living color.
Mm-hmm. Well, really, I mean, Bob Hoskins is, at least in his makeup with the mustache and everything, he's really a pretty good live action version of Mario, really. I'm not sure they could have done much better than that.
Yeah. Totally forgot he was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So I figured, hey, that's good casting. He's got experience in like a kind of fun animated setting, but I don't know if that was the mood they were going for, the Roger Rabbit mood in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's got this sort of manic energy. It's the back and forth and the exchange of the characters. You can at least see what they were going for. I'm not sure if they achieved it, but
I'll say already I like the tone of the movie. It reminds me of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1990.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily dark. It's gritty, but it's not necessarily like brooding and depressing like The Crow. And I think The Crow had something to do with this. They either filmed it in the same area, or I remember reading a book about the making of The Crow, and this had been mentioned. So maybe part of the crew that worked on The Crow, or same filming location, something to do with it. But the music is like upbeat. It's fun. These guys are, smiling and upbeat. It's not like they're wearing leather spikes or anything.
Do you guys think they were going for like a Ghostbuster kind of, because it feels like something like that, like a mystery.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm. Could be, yeah. It's that strange blend of this kind of dark location and kind of, I don't know, almost fantasy story, but with the humor they're trying to interject.
There you go.
Here. Yeah.
I do love the New York setting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there's Samantha Mathis, yeah.
What else did she do?
Oh, she was in all sorts of movies in the late 80s, early 90s. The one I remember her the most from, one of my favorites, is actually Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater. I would say it's probably one of my top 20 favorite movies.
So the Super Nintendo was released in 1991 in North America, 1990 in Japan. So again, that was another part of it. Like Super Mario Brothers, isn't that like back from '87? It seemed like, why'd you guys wait so long to make this?
Mm-hmm. Well, what shocks me too is the fact that Nintendo would agree to allowing this property to be done and handled this way, and not doing like a animated movie. You would have thought there'd be any one of however many animated film studios, that would jump at the chance to do a Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, this is something that I'm surprised too that Nintendo will allow this.
Fisher Stevens. What's interesting though is really this movie is a who's who of like, mid to late 80s casting. Samantha Mathis, Fisher Stevens. I think John Leguizamo is pretty new at this point, but Bob Hoskins had been in a bunch of stuff. I mean, Dennis Hopper. I mean, how do you get Dennis Hopper to do a movie like this? It's almost like
a hot lunch.
Yeah, right.
I call him Hot Lunch Hopper because he's been in some awesome stuff, but he's also, paid some bills too.
Well, there's some of those actors that you have to think that, I mean, somebody must have some pictures of them or something, doing something, because it's like, how else? I think we talked about this last chat or something. One of my all-time favorite stories was Jeremy Irons, and he was being interviewed about like why he did the Dungeons and Dragons movies, and he basically said something about like, well, some things you do for their artistic merit, and some things you do because your kids need braces.
That's right. That's right. The quote, I think, from the Gaming Historian documentary, something like, I think it was Hoskins' kid asked, why did you do Super Mario Brothers? And he said, so you could have shoes. Or maybe it was Hopper.
Yeah.
So you could have shoes. Not the cat, like Hoskins great as Mario. Captain Lou was good too. If anyone remembers the animated show, it used to have the bookends with Captain Lou as Super Mario. He was interesting too, kind of a more bombastic. he was Captain Lou. He wasn't playing Mario. He was playing Captain Lou in a Mario cosplay.
Captain Lou just wearing a Mario outfit.
Yeah. Luigi, not at all what I expected Luigi to be. Doesn't Luigi have a mustache too?
Yeah, I think generally in the games he's depicted as a mustache. Yeah.
So I pictured him, he could be the younger brother, but taller, ganglier. I'm going off of Super Mario 2, where they had him, like his legs were doing the propeller when he jumps. But he's kind of the hot rod of this movie.
Mm.
And Mario's the cup. All the time, that's something that you'll never be.
There was a story, I guess, of Dustin Hoffman for a long time was considered being cast in this movie, and actually, if you would have replaced John Leguizamo with Dustin Hoffman as Luigi, just skewed it a little late. I mean, obviously they wanted the young character and the girl and all that stuff, but I think that might have actually worked pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. Great cast here. This is why I like to give movies like this a chance, even though they're universally panned for decades, and the directors get blacklisted for the rest of their career. As per the Gaming Historian documentary, that director still can't get a gig because they go, "You did Mario Brothers, didn't you?" But the cast, there's always something good in even the worst movies, and they're great actors. And there's some really nice camera work being done here too. The editing is fine. I mean, I've seen much worse films.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's actually interesting about this, or one of them, is that really it's kind of like I think we've used the souffle analogy before, but it's got all of the parts. It's got the good cast. I mean, the directors were relatively competent. Even you could arguably say the script was okay. Apparently it was going through like mass rewrites every single day of this, where the actors just stopped even trying to rehearse or read the pages in advance because they always change like day to day. But I mean, generally it's got the pieces. It just nothing came together. It's just it's nothing feels right. It's just sort of looks good actors, just doesn't really do it.
Sounds like it was made up on the fly from the Gaming Historian documentary, where they were doing daily rewrites.
Yeah.
And they doctored the script, and then it sounded like they were on the right track, but then when it came time to do filming, they doctored it right back to what it was, and you just cannot make a movie on the fly. It doesn't work that way. And they hope, we hear it over and over again, they hope that it'll all work out, and it just cannot. Like, you have to have every meticulous detail planned out when you're shooting this stuff. Just coming up with things on the fly, when has it ever worked?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get very, one movie that I have actually run in front of me is actually Casablanca. that was written like week by week. It was like this was written, take it off, do this, and that worked by a miracle. I mean, you had to be very lucky for something like that to work. It
was a different time too. Like
that
was I guess in that area you could do that. The stakes weren't as high. Like I don't know the numbers exactly, but I would guess the Casablanca's crew was like microscopic compared to the crew of a movie like this and the budget of this.
Yeah, and would do back then. They would do like about. I mean, Humphrey Bogart did like maybe like 70 or 60 movies in 1 year. It's like it was just fast forward, fast.
It kind of makes me. It kind of makes me think of like student films where I guess you could get away with it on a student film or a little indie film.
There you go.
Like a bare knuckle, right? Run and gun thing. But a multi-million-dollar Hollywood production.
You can't do this.
Every time I've heard of them doing that, like just look at the Star Wars movies. The later ones.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's that difference between, there's that whole guerrilla filmmaking thing, and I can't imagine that working on a big budget, like large crew kind of movie. If you're running around with, a couple grips, somebody handling the mic, a couple actors, and somebody holding a reflector or two, I could imagine that working, but not on a film like this. Not a chance, where things have to be scheduled and planned out in advance, and no way. Yeah,
costume continuity. We're 15 minutes in, and Mario hasn't stomped a Goomba yet. I guess they're building up to it. A little bit of a romance budding between Luigi and is she the princess, I guess?
I think it's supposed to be. Is she Peach? I think, right?
Princess Peach?
I think so.
No Toadstool. Does Donkey Kong make an appearance in this? That'd be the ultimate little Easter egg.
That's actually one of those. I'm actually looking in the background in a lot of these things to see if there's any little Easter eggs or anything like that, but I haven't seen anything just yet. There's got to be something. I mean, you'd be really missing the boat if you didn't throw a whole bunch of Easter eggs in the background here.
How is Luigi not wearing green pants in this scene?
Yeah, that is a curious costume omission. You'd think, I don't know, unless they were trying not to, totally drive it home or anything, but you would have thought at least that they would have done that. I could understand not going to the whole overalls and all that stuff for the whole movie, but you would think that they'd at least dress him in green.
Yeah, the color is important, like especially when the character has not much else to go on. The look is important. So I've always noticed when I'm watching adaptions like this, it puts a smile on my face if a character who's blue is wearing blue. If he's like a blue character, he's got a blue jacket on or something like that. I like seeing Mario in red, or red and blue. Like certain characters, when you don't know their big backstory, at least visually, it's nice they gave Mario a mustache.
Yeah.
Interesting direction to go in, like dinosaur fossils, and I get why hardcore Mario fans looked at this and went, missed opportunity. I understand the setup to get there, but like this doesn't even feel like, oh, we're one step closer to Mario stomping Goombas and traveling through pipes.
Yeah. Well, what's kind of interesting, I can add this kind of anecdotally. I actually studied paleontology back in my uni days, and my first time around to college, that was what I looked at doing. And you absolutely 100% never, ever, 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 despite what movies have shown you, you never see complete skeletons anywhere. Like Jurassic Park, any of those, you never find complete skeletons ever.
Ooh. I love him grabbing the tool belt.
Yeah. That's what we need.
I'm so glad at least they held on to the idea that they're plumbers, because that's
Mm-hmm.
another one of the few things they had going. Is Mario wearing the green jacket? Luigi's in the red hoodie. Like
Mm.
when you have so little to go on, I think it's not really nitpicking. It's more like, come on, guys, just show us you love this stuff. I think that's the important thing. You can feel when is that Sean Penn? You can feel when the people making this stuff love and have reverence, and you can also feel when they're like, it's a gig.
Yeah, it's definitely a gig. I mean, the people that wrote this, I don't think I even knew what a Nintendo was.
He's giving it his all, you know. He's Bob's great.
Now, something to watch for, and I'm not sure where it comes in. It must come in later, but apparently, for a good percentage of this movie, Bob Hoskins had actually broken his hand,
Oh
and he's
no!
wearing a cast that's painted to look like a real hand. And so I keep
Cool.
looking to where where it's
Oh,
abundantly
wow.
obvious.
That reminds me of Jackie Chan in Rumble in the Bronx. I think he rolled his ankle, broke his ankle at one
Yeah.
point, so they covered his foot with like he was wearing maybe a cast, and they painted up the cast or had a rubber covering to look like a sneaker. So in the outtakes, you can actually see him. You can see that it's a rubber covering of a cast, and he just kept on filming with a broken foot.
Oh, man. The same
I
with John Belushi in the Blues Brothers. He broke toward the end of the movie. He broke his leg.
Oh, really?
really.
Yeah.
I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
know that.
and he was on painkillers, so he
Oh.
just kept going.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I've busted my ankle and a lot of bones skateboarding in my time, and whenever I hear those stories of people just kind of carrying on in a cast or whatever like that, that must be the most excruciating, painfully thing,
It
to
has to be.
experience ever. Because I remember, like, I'd broken my elbow and I could barely even move my arm for like 4 weeks. I mean, I can't imagine how they're doing that.
Yeah, and probably isn't helping the healing process either.
I wouldn't think so.
Probably you might be. That's freaky.
That is weird.
You might be messing yourself up for life just because you're in a pinch and need to finish the gig.
Yeah.
Mm.
For all of the legend of all of the backstage turmoil and the cast despising the directors to the point of making custom T-shirts disparaging them, this is just a totally normal-looking movie. I mean, we don't see a key grip like in the shot
Yeah.
giving anyone the finger, and like
Yeah.
it just looks like you wouldn't think that all this chaos happened. It's one of those things of like the making of is more interesting than the actual thing on screen.
Well, you hear those stories of all the stuff that kind of goes on, and there's this great coffee story up when we see some of the
God.
cast members with the the crazy thing is I'd even heard that before I'd seen that gaming historian episode, but it's kind of like legendary.
The director poured scalding hot coffee on one of the people in a costume because he thought he'd look too clean, and dirty him up with some coffee, but it was hot.
God.
Well, and the story apparently even came from John Leguizamo when he was in an interview talking about stuff that had happened, and he's like, "Yeah, this dude, I think the director's name's Rocky. I'll have to look for it real quick. Anyways, his name's Rocky and
Balboa.
yeah, probably. Rocky Morton, and Annabelle Jankel, but apparently these two are really well known for doing music videos, and I think that must have been what they were going for in this film, especially these kind of scenes where you're looking at all these kind of strange people in the background, and But I mean, you can't imagine somebody how horribly they must conduct themselves on set for the entire cast and crew to basically turn against you like that. I mean, that would just have to be legendarily poor people skills, levels of incompetence. And really, sorry.
Well, definitely know from working in the industry, some of the people responsible for making some of this stuff are very, very artistic, not the best people skills sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They don't remember you need to treat human beings like human beings, not puppets. And that's sometimes some of the worst directors are accused of that, treating actors like puppets instead of human beings, like pouring scalding hot coffee on them.
Yeah. I mean, who would ever think of doing that? It's when at least the sets I've been on, it'd be more like calling the makeup guy over and like, hey, let's make this guy glossy.
Yeah.
I mean, they have stuff for that, not hot coffee.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, I can see definitely kind of like a darker, creepier look instead of the fun, happy Super Mario World from Super Nintendo with Yoshi.
Well, they've crossed like from here on out after they've crossed from Manhattan into like Dino Hatton, I think they call it, right? Mm. The now it's just everything gets weirder and weirder. And I have to say, like, as somebody that's in the creative side of stuff, this is some pretty good production design in this movie. I'll have to look and see who they had do it, but I mean, it looks pretty solid. They've carried over really themes and look at all the colors and how the costumes are tying into the lighting. And, this is pretty decently thought out. That was not an accident. And that's crazy.
That's a Goomba.
I think it's a Goomba.
Or, what were the other ones? There was turtles also, right?
There were Koopas. And Goombas. Yeah. Okay. I think this is the scene with, with Fiona Shaw, right? Where they introduced the two of them. Yeah. Fiona Shaw, otherwise known as the Dursley. What's her name?
What is he doing? So I'm reading some of the trivia on here. Leguizamo and Hoskins, Mario and Luigi got drunk frequently in order to get through this. So we'll see if we can see some glassy eyes later on, or maybe already. Hoskins broke his finger when the van door slams on his hand. For the rest of the film, Hoskins is wearing a cast that was painted pink. So I think we already passed that part, right?
Did we? Yeah. And Fiona Shaw, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, she comes from a heavy theatrical background. I mean, she's pretty well studied, and she's down to playing this character in Super Mario Brothers.
It's wild to me how many actors who are Shakespearean, they have Shakespearean training, end up in comic and cartoon and toy adaptation movies.
Yeah.
I mean, we just think of Patrick Stewart now as much as Xavier as Picard, right? That's who he is now. But when they first put Patrick Stewart in X-Men, that was kind of wild. Like, well, he had already done Trek, but like that Shakespearean actor is Charles Xavier, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's usually like they don't usually recall the experience well. Stewart's never had an issue with the X-Men movies, I don't think, but most of these Shakespearean actors who sign up for these, they don't have glowing things to say about the project. And it's like, what'd you expect? I mean, you can't go from Macbeth to Street Fighter 2 and expect to get a standing ovation.
Poor Raul Julia. His last film was Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
Or was it the first one?
Yeah.
It might have been the first one with Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile. Yeah.
Nah.
That was another disappointing movie. In fact, I'm trying to think of like a good video game adaptation movie. Mortal Kombat is one of the only ones I can think of.
Yeah.
That really felt a lot like the game.
Yeah, it did. And even that one, you go back and watch that, and there's some stuff in that movie that you're kind of like, oof, ouch. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that was the first one that actually did the movie justice. But I think the big difference was with Mortal Kombat, that game had a lot of story behind it. You know, it's like all the characters had their story, and there was so much to draw from. Where, you know, Super Mario Brothers, you've got rescuing a princess, you know.
And also Mortal Kombat was using like photography for the animation. Like they used real life people and did stop motion animation of like photographs. So it wasn't like trying to take a cartoon character like Mario and bring him to life. All they had to do was cast an actor who looked somewhat like the person in the game.
Yeah.
I like the little dino effects. They look cool.
I think they're like dinosaurs instead of rats, right? Is that what they're like?
Yeah, I guess so.
So what is that crystal? I haven't been paying attention.
Well, I think it's the kind of the gateway into the other world, right? Because she had to have it to jump through the portal, and so it's got to be some sort of, you know, MacGuffin sort of thing. Sure, it's what they're after.
One of the trivia bits says after this movie bombed, Nintendo they put a halt on any live action movies, and a Metroid film was in development but never made it past pre-production. Now that would have been awesome because Metroid had a great backstory.
Yeah, agreed. I think of all their properties, that's probably the one that would make the best movie, with the possible exception of Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, that too. On the NES, like how many video games had the atmosphere that Metroid had? On an 8-bit system. I just think of Metroid, and I think that kind of H.R. Giger-esque immersive environment and the tone, like despite it being 8-bit.
Well, I still remember getting that game. It was one of those where I think, you know, it was a reward. I think my mom took me to Toys R Us and said, like, well, what new Nintendo game do you want? And I had no idea, and it had just come out. I remember looking at the case and thinking, wow, that looks really different. And getting it home, and it was just being blown away. It was like, wow, this is just amazing.
And the follow-ups were great too. The Super Nintendo Metroid, just even better. Yeah. Even some of the handheld Metroid games were fantastic.
Yeah.
Super Mario Brothers as a movie. I don't know.
Well, there's some very odd sort of, forgive me for saying this, sort of weird sort of sexual and mature themes in this movie. It's like, you know, there are these bits here and there where it's just like, okay. It's like, who was the audience for this film?
Yeah. Interesting. This guy's playing a cop again. He was a cop in, I believe he was a cop in Terminator 2 when he's questioning Sarah Connor.
Wow. You know what? We were talking about movies that can, you know, hurt the company. Final Fantasy. We all remember Final Fantasy. What happened?
Oh yeah.
It bankrupt Square Enix, I think it was. It bankrupted the company.
One of the greatest game series, though.
Yeah.
The special effects in that movie was amazing. It's computer animation, but it was amazing. But the story was just not there.
It seems like a movie is so often the goal for all these people who make something else. Like you make a comic, your dream, your end goal is to have a movie version of it. Same with a toy or a video game. And maybe it's just let go of that goal and stick with what brought you to the dance and focus on making the best comic or the best game of your game.
Well, you know, it's funny. It's, you know, you ask Alan Moore and he'd be like, no, they're two separate things. It's like he's one of those guys that's always been like, oh, absolutely never. I never want to see a live action adaptation. And, you know, to his credit, some of his adaptations of his comic material haven't been that great. But he's so vocal. He's like, no, two different mediums. One doesn't beget the other. And, you know, he's been extremely vocal about not wanting adaptations of his work.
I would have to agree. Yeah.
My thing is, you know, with all these sort of things, and you could even arguably say, okay, even with this movie, like I would say as a creator, say if I'd made a book or, you know, one of the games I've worked on, whatever, if a movie came out, my thought would be, okay, if it's bringing people back to the source material, then it's doing its job. It's like, it's like when, Watchmen, like Alan Moore hated Watchmen. He always said like, oh, I'll never watch that, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff.
That's ironic.
But yeah, my thing is that if one person that saw that movie goes and says, hey, you know what, I should read that comic, then it's like, you know what, the movie did its job.
Yeah. That's the positive that comes out of a lot of disappointing adaptions. I always go back to Crystal Skull, despite the number of people who didn't like Crystal Skull, it opened up the doors to a lot of people seeing the Indiana Jones trilogy, and that was definitely a good thing. This is not Super Mario Brothers. This is kind of reminding me of the Ghostbusters reboot, Answer the Call.
Yeah.
If they had called that Ghost Smashers, I think people wouldn't have been so upset. If they had called this Super Giuseppe Brothers, I think it would have been appreciated for being a really well-made, nice-looking, quirky movie. But it's not Super Mario Brothers.
No.
Super Giuseppe Brothers. Giuseppe and his brother Flavio.
They've so, I guess, minimally held on to any of the themes whatsoever, and it's like, yeah, I want to say there was something about, like, I think there was a Japanese movie or whatever, and it's like, why they didn't just do a really well done, high budget animated movie is just beyond me.
Yeah, and that applied then and that applies now. I mean, I would rather see that Netflix animated Castlevania as great. Like, that was so great. I prefer that over a big budget live action Castlevania that just has very little to do with Castlevania. Although with Castlevania, I mean, that's a hard formula to mess up. It's Dracula versus a family of vampire hunters. But yeah, animation. I wish animation was the goal, the dream. One day this will be a big animated movie instead of a big live action movie. But, it is what it is. You're right. The movie is the thing that always reinvigorates a franchise, revives it, brings people back in. Look how many people are excited about Snake Eyes, despite everything we know about live action G.I. Joe movies. They've had 2 kicks at the can, and there's still so many G.I. Joe fans who are, that's the big thing they're excited for this year.
I'll be really, really intrigued to see a trailer for that one. It's one of those that I'm holding off judgment until I saw it. I was one of probably the few that I actually kind of enjoyed Retaliation. I thought it was a fun movie.
Me too.
Felt a little more like G.I. Joe, but Snake Eyes is one of those where I'm going to have to see something.
I thought Retaliation was a fantastic G.I. John movie.
G.I. John.
Again, it's like you use the brand name and changed everything, especially with Rise of Cobra. Retaliation felt a little more like Retaliation to me felt like G.I. Joe Renegades, which was a good show.
Yeah. I think it was clearly patterned after that. I mean, it had to have been.
But it was weird to do a live action adaptation of a brand new show, G.I. Joe Renegades, than the adaptation most people wanted to see, which was Real American Hero.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the problem with G.I. Joe, and I guess we're getting a little sidetracked here, which is fine because of what's going on the screen right now. But people don't want G.I. Joe. I think a vast majority of people want G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero, not just G.I. Joe.
Well, it's I think as a brand, I think Joe, and we're actually kind of contradicting ourselves to a degree because Renegades kind of went against that standard formula. It focused on 4 characters or something like that. But I think the strength of Joe was that it was a group. It was it was all these different collections of characters like that kind of come together, and as a series, it was always able to kind of focus on a different character, where sometimes, one episode would be Flint and another episode would be Duke and another episode would be Shipwreck. And, that was, I think, kind of the fun of it.
That was what was good about Renegades too, though. They're a group on the run instead of just one guy on the run trying to clear his name. Like, Renegades could have easily been G.I. Joe Renegade, and it could have been about Dusty. They just adapt that story or any other Joe, but that similar thing of one guy trying to clear his name, but instead they made it the A team. It's a group of guys trying to clear their name. So I think at its core, that's the thing that is always the most important thing about G.I. Joe, the group mentality.
Yeah.
The importance of the group and their brothers and sisters, despite, being from different families.
Yeah.
This is, they're being chased by a Koopa.
Oh, did we just hear a power-up sound? Sprinkling in a
We're starving here. We're starving here for some classic. Well, Luigi's belt has some green on it.
Yeah.
So I think this is the part where they're drunk in real life.
You think?
Yeah.
Can't really tell if they're teetering. That's, I guess, intentional.
Well, I keep looking for Hoskins' cast on his hand, and so far I haven't seen it. At least it hasn't been glaringly obvious.
Oh, a little bit of a jump there, super jump. It's just there's so much that you could be putting in this, and they just are choosing not to, and they're making a different movie. This is Super Giuseppe Brothers. It's just a totally different thing.
Well, and I remember one of the criticisms of this film was that it kind of aimlessly went between action sequence and action sequence with not really a whole lot of story or drive between. And I'm really seeing that because, I don't know about you guys. I'm really looking at this film trying to figure out stuff to comment on. Okay, the production design's actually pretty good, so that's always interesting. Yeah. But there's so little here that feels like it's pulling everything together. It's sort of like a film that's shot in sequence and a mishmash of little pieces here and there.
Exactly.
Because you really can't fault. I mean, look at the production design of this car, and it's got this turbine, and it's running on this screen, sort of like a bumper cars. I mean, it's pretty interesting, and it's well thought out. You have to think oh, look, you see the AMC Gremlin there? That's pretty funny.
Yeah, great Mad Max looking cars here, but this is a perfect example of style over substance.
Mm-hmm.
I like the picture of Mario, the mugshot.
Yeah,
both of them. Think they're drunk here?
I hope not. They're driving.
Yeah, I'm blanking on when Mario was driving a car in any of the games.
Yeah, doesn't really happen. But what's funny is one of the more recent Mario, it might have been the most recent Mario games, is Mario's running around New York City, and it's like Mario, the cartoony versions we know from the games and everything, running around a realistically styled New York City. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it feels like the game might have come sort of full circle with the movie.
Mm.
That would have been a great idea for a movie, and I don't think you could have done it back then, but the same sort of movie now where it's filmed like live action movie, but Mario is in it as this animated character and someone crossed over between worlds. That could kind of be interesting.
Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah. Or Sonic.
Oh yeah,
I haven't seen that one yet either.
Yeah, I liked Sonic. I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it didn't deviate from the source material. The movie starts in the Sonic world that you remember from the game, and throughout the whole movie, they keep giving you those Easter eggs. Well, they're right in your face. It's not like a little hidden blink and you miss it thing. The rings are in there. I mean, Sonic, same thing, exact same situation. Not much to go on, but it's all in the movie. Anything they could mine from the game, they put it in the movie.
Yeah.
Right to the point where when he finally jumps and bonks something, when he curls up in a ball and he bonks something, it's a huge moment in the movie because that's what you did in the game all the time. So it wasn't just a throwaway thing. They build up to it. But here, there's no mushrooms. Mario doesn't even have his hat. This might sound all superficial, but it helps to create a world. And the omission of it also helps to make the viewer not feel invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't, as a viewer, sit there and just be staring at a poster and reminding yourself, oh yeah, there's the name, Super Mario Brothers. It's officially Super Mario Brothers. You can't. You can't be looking at a poster reminding yourself. You have to constantly be seeing things reminding you that this is Super Mario Brothers. And when I was watching Sonic the whole time, I'm thinking, yes, this is Sonic.
I haven't seen Sonic yet.
I enjoyed it. I think if you liked the game, there's really nothing to hate in the Sonic movie.
Now, that was one of those where I think one of the few times I've ever seen fan backlash actually change the movie before it was out. I don't know if you guys remember when the first trailer came out.
Yes, the
and
design.
The character looked dramatically different.
Yeah, he was too thin and realistic looking, and they made him look more like the game character. And I think it made a huge difference. Man, Hoskins is great. Like, having never seen this movie, from what I've seen so far, I think he's fantastic. He's doing kind of like a slapstick performance, which I would expect in a Super Mario Brothers movie. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie around him isn't following suit, but he's being true to the character.
He is doing his best from start to finish.
He's trying to pay for those shoes.
Yeah, he is not phoning it in. That's one thing you got to give him that. Now, I think this scene was the one where they're in this mud pit, and it was originally they were talking about making it worms.
Oh,
and Fiona Shaw basically said like, no way, not a chance, not getting in not getting in a big puddle of worms. I kind of don't blame her.
Why would it be?
Yeah.
Oh, she's holding something, though, slithery. I guess that was the compromise. Yeah. I'm just not getting Hopper as King Koopa. Like, I just don't get it.
I can't be either. It's like, no way.
It's too much of a departure from, the big... What is he, Bowser in the game?
I think so, yeah. And did it explain why he's got these girls taken captive, or?
Yeah, they says that he's trying to find the princess, so he captured all these girls to find her, and she said, "Oh, I guess none of us are princes."
Even her, not the princess I pictured.
Not exactly. But, to be fair, I'm not sure anything in this movie is exactly how I'd picture it.
Yeah. I'm surprised so far. I think we're about halfway through, and I haven't really seen anything terrible. Like, it's just, its major fault is it's not true to the source material. In the least. Like, at all. It's not even building. Like, it's not even building on the world of Mario.
Mm-hmm. Some of these things, some of these bad movies that kind of have, I don't know, inexplicable decisions sometimes. You hear that there are some reasons behind them. Like when they did the original Fantastic Four movie, the horrible Roger Corman film. And that, by the way, if there's another movie that's absolutely hysterically bad, and the documentary of the making of that film is even better because they had basically made that film just to hold on to the rights to it.
Oh, right.
But none of the actors knew that was the case. They all thought they were there doing a serious film, and so it's just all this crazy stuff, and it just doesn't make sense. And they were kind of just putting it out there to put it out there. Well, one of the reasons they never had the Human Torch flame on, they said, was because they didn't want kids thinking they could light themselves on fire and be like the Human Torch.
Right.
And so, they don't make a big thing of the mushrooms or any of that sort of stuff. And so a part of me is wondering, okay, was the production, was the studio afraid that kids would start going out in their garden and eading fungus, or,
Sure.
There are always those weird sort of ideas like that pop up.
I'm sure. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's a good point. Eating mushrooms and jumping in the toilet.
Yeah.
They probably... were able to discourage a lot of that happening just by not including it in the movie. Although, how many kids played the game and didn't do that?
Yeah, true.
But it's another thing to see it in live action. Here's a Dennis Hopper quote for you on the movie. It was a nightmare, very honestly, that movie. It was a husband and wife directing team who were both control freaks and wouldn't talk before they made decisions. Anyway, I was supposed to go down there for 5 weeks, and I was there for 17.
Wow.
Holy moly.
That's a lot of hot lunches there, Dennis.
Yes. I mean, imagine under any other circumstance, like, because sometimes you think of these actors and you're like, oh, big deal, you were there 17 weeks and everything. Okay, I could not even imagine showing up to do a job for like 5 weeks and then ending up being there, 3 times that. I mean, that would just be crazy. I mean, from 5 to 17 weeks.
4
oh my goodness,
months.
That's incredible. And, they're probably on site. I mean, God, the poor guy was probably pulling so many hours on set. I doubt that he ever even actually got to go home, like fly home and visit his home or family or anything like that. Oh, is this a Super Scope he's holding? I think it is. The SNES Super Scope. There you go.
That's a cool little, and it's gone.
That's
See, that's an Easter egg, and it could have been a little bit more than that. Like, it's just blink and you miss it type of thing.
Could we even never see a SNES console or anything like that? Not that I saw.
Yeah. Here's another Hopper quote. I made this picture. I mentioned this earlier. I made this picture called Super Mario Brothers, and my 6-year-old son at the time, he's now 18, said, "Dad, I think you're probably a pretty good actor, but why did you play that terrible King Koopa in Super Mario Brothers?" I said, "Well, Henry, I did that so you could have shoes." And he said, "Dad, I don't need shoes that badly." Sometimes you got to go barefoot.
Look at these dinosaurs.
Oh, here's another potential casting for Luigi. Tom Hanks. They were looking at Tom Hanks for Luigi.
Wow.
Or was it Mario? I remember in the Gaming Historian documentary, Tom Hanks was mentioned. It might have been Mario.
He was in there or something.
Along with Dustin Hoffman.
Well, the irony is I think that they didn't use him or something because they were afraid that at the time he really had been a kind of a has-been actor or something like that. And I guess he can kind of count himself lucky that he didn't do it. But his kind of big comeback role in the early 90s was Philadelphia, right? The one where he plays the AIDS patient, and I think he picked the right movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if it would have destroyed his career. Actors seem to be a little more bulletproof than directors, because like Tom Hanks did make Turner and Hooch, and he made a few other things, The Burbs, things that weren't exactly great films. But it seems like in movies you're only as good as your last movie. Or luckily, often you're as good as your last movie. I thought Rian Johnson's career was over, and then he goes and makes Knives Out, a fantastic film. And
it was amazing.
I'm shocked at how all of this animosity and vitriol towards Rian Johnson has vanished because he made a good movie.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, and it's a lot of these really, competent directors. I think he's a good director. I think a lot of people just didn't like what he did with Star Wars. But I mean, if you look at his body of work, he's done some really good stuff. And the story that I've heard, like all these Taika Waititis and all these kind of guys that are really good filmmakers and do like Star Wars or these Marvel films or whatever, it's kind of become their kind of gateway projects where they're able to get into these studios and do the kind of movies they want to do because they get in and do a really good, well-performing, Black Panther movie or something, So it's I think it's kind of become the new way to do it. Is you do sort of this, I don't know what you could arguably call low grade sort of stuff, this pop stuff, and then are able to kind of do the ones you really want to.
Yeah. If anyone is listening along to this movie and they genuinely wanted like a in-depth play-by-play and they're thinking, talk about the movie more, no.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying, and there's
nothing to talk about.
It's just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, there's Roller.
Yeah, hey, they've filmed in a quarry here, pretty obviously.
It's Optimus's Roller. It is zany. Like, I do like the look of this movie, the way it kind of moves and feels.
Oh, there's some more of the mini dinos.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a like Jim Henson weirdness to it with the puppets. A charming kind of wholesomeness to it. I thought this movie would be a lot more mean-spirited, like dark and depressing, and it's quirky and zany.
Well, I think when we were talking before, I think I'd compared this movie to like Return to Oz to you.
Oh yeah.
Which I still kind of get, but I do think there's a difference in that Return to Oz has some genuinely disturbing sort of imagery. There's stuff in that movie that when I've gone back and rewatched that film, it still creeps me out. Like the Wheelers and the little rock monster guy and the Rock King or whatever they call him. I mean, there's some really crazy stuff in there. Whereas there's that bizarreness, but it still feels really vanilla somehow.
I wonder if it would have benefited from a more zany lead, like a Jim Carrey. Not at this point, but like I'm thinking if this movie were to be made today with this script and this look, someone like Danny McBride as Mario. Like if you're gonna go that far off in a different direction, then just to have Danny McBride be in this movie and not even trying to play Mario. He's kind of like what Captain Lou did with Mario. He's not Mario. He's Captain Lou. So if you just put like a Will Ferrell, how about Will Ferrell and Danny McBride as Mario and Luigi?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
It'd have a whole different energy to it.
Just go 100% bonkers.
Yeah. I'd love to see Will Ferrell as Luigi trying to do an Italian accent. I want to get a home and eat a pizza pie.
Now, apparently, going back to the character on screen, apparently this was Frank Welker as the voice of Luigi, doing the sound effects and everything.
Oh, really? That's not Leguizamo?
No.
Really?
I'm sorry. Yoshi. The dinosaur.
As Yoshi. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense. For Frank Welker has always been the guy when you need a creature sound, animal sound.
Yeah, Welker is Yoshi of the Goombas.
Yeah. There you go. He was in
I just picture him being in a recording studio 12 hours a day back then, and all the studios kind of lined up outside and coming in and giving him a script and saying, "Here you go, you're in Super Mario Brothers now." And then the next guy comes in, "Okay, you're in Mortal Kombat now, Frank." He's like, "Okay, thank you." he just does like 8 movies a day.
They just hand him a different card or something like that. Yeah. I love. I don't know if you guys caught the weaponizing of the plungers. That was very very. Yeah.
Oh, look, it's like one of the Constructicons here.
Yeah, Frank Welker, simply the best. The music is just so does not go with the movie.
No. Well, but they're really good stuff here. Like we were talking about this. I keep trying to look for obviously weird stuff, and it's here. Yeah. But like that was a fantastic match shot with that scene, the city above the quarry where they're driving the thing. I mean, there's some really legitimately good design going on here.
As a 5-minute music video, this thing would have looked fantastic.
Yeah.
It really is a 5-minute music video stretched over 90 minutes. They're in these nice scene. What's that?
Oh, the scene where they're like you were saying in these nice suits, and the girls gyrating in the stripper outfits.
How like again, like it's a little thing, but how is Mario not in a red suit and Luigi in a green one?
Yeah, man, they missed that right there.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes. I don't think that's a little thing. I think that's a big message to the viewer. Who cares what you love and what you know? And fans, they vote with their wallets. If they're told who cares what you know and what you love, they'll vote and they'll say, well, here's who cares.
Well, like you said, that much just feels lazy. It's like for as good as everything else looks, to skip over or just forget small little details like that. Like, the red and the green, which should have been so easy to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now they do get their video game style outfits later in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like a big reveal, big special moment. But I think by the time we hit it, I'm guessing it'll probably be too little too late.
Yeah.
Chris says, I feel a dance off coming or a fight scene. maybe 2 in 1.
Yeah.
She kind of looks like something out of the game, one of the spiked turtles.
Yeah. I think she's supposed to be a reference to something.
There you go. There's a dance off.
Okay.
There we go. What I always love when I see scenes like this, though, is that that when this is going on, there probably wasn't any music or whatever. And so I always look at the people in the background performers and extras. And I always just think of okay, dance around like you're dancing to music. Okay, this is what, and then everybody going, well, it's dead quiet except for whatever dialogue they're doing.
Yeah, they're all out of sync.
Yeah.
I almost think this would have been better. Innuendo, you say?
Yeah.
I almost think this would have been better if they went completely out in left field and Mario was like this dark Avenger living out, like the Boogeyman type of thing, or Neville from I Am Legend. If he was this dark, brooding plumber who came in and attacked the Goombas and the and the Koopas. He's like the Crow.
Yeah. Or he's delusional, and they none of this is really actually happening.
That's right. Yeah, he's one flew over the cuckoo's nest. I don't think this movie's crazy, as crazy as people make it out to be. Maybe the behind the scenes experience of it was totally insane, but this isn't as off the wall as it's made out to be. I don't know. Maybe because after this movie was made, I've got how long has it been? 25 years or so. I've got all those bad movies I've seen since this was made to go, hey, this ain't that bad.
I think this movie came out during that time that early 90s time, right before stuff started going, I don't know, weirdly over the top on CG. After Jurassic Park came out, I think from 95 to 2003 maybe, there were all those movies that came out that looked so awful. When you go back and watch them, they just don't age very well. Even the original Mummy. I remember when that movie came out, it was oh, this is great. And I watched it a couple of years ago thinking oh, that movie was so awesome. And thinking wow, did I actually like this? And in that regards, it's still kind of, there's lots of practical effects and, there's not CGI all over the place and all this sort of stuff. And so I think on that aspect, it feels like one of those movies from when you were a kid that you're sort of still, I don't know, nostalgic for, So I think it's aged a little better. It's still really weird, but it just doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look embarrassing.
Well, there's a super jump.
There it is.
Sort of.
So they first made their official super jump, and how far are we into the movie?
An hour.
Would have been cute if they had the sound effect that boing. Because I can just imagine this is a great movie to compare with the new Sonic. Might make a great double feature. Watching the new Sonic and this movie, everything you should do and everything you shouldn't do. Because as Sonic departs from the source material too, the whole movie doesn't take place on Sonic's world. It's not just a full-length feature of Sonic running in circles and fighting Dr. Robotnik, but it still feels so much more like Sonic than this feels like Mario.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris is saying the 80s soundtrack always brightens things up. It does sound like the soundtrack is trying to fix it in post. What is that? It's a little H.R. Giger-esque.
Yeah, slightly. Well, the goo and how the fungus works into it. Weren't they trying to work into it that the fungus is actually like Peach's family or relatives, and she's like related to this stuff, if I recall correctly? Or this is like her father or something like that?
Oh.
Mm.
And we're still here. We're just kind of stunned. Yeah. We're speechless.
We're just sitting here, mouths agape, just watching, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. It's too bad they didn't send Dapper.
His, I mean, he sounds like Dennis Hopper, right? But it's just hearing him say this dialogue with that hairstyle is a little weird. It's like it's as if Jack Nicholson was sitting there and doing it. Like he's not playing a character. He's just being Dennis Hopper.
He was I think after he did I think it was Apocalypse Now, that he realized he needed help because he was taking so many drugs and things like that, that he was at some small airport, and he tried to get on the plane by running after and getting on the wing of the plane.
What?
That's how crazy he was. And that's when he knew that he needed help.
I think that's the moment that I'd probably start thinking I needed help too, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I'm going to surf this thing. Just watch.
Yes. That was Dennis Hopper.
I have to point out in here that they're the tendency in this movie to overdo any theme they're trying to introduce, and all the pipes and everything along with the Super Mario Brothers, all the pipes. I'm finding that interesting. Now, I have to say, if I was designing this movie, what I would have tried to do a lot more is introduce that whole idea of like 8-bit graphics sort of stuff, like having blocky stuff everywhere and things like that. I mean, trying to think of ways. Oh, there's their outfits.
There it is.
Dun, dun, dun. Where do they get them?
Yeah, I think they got them just out of a random locker.
Oh, well, that is awesome. That's what I've been wanting to see the whole movie. All right, I love it.
We should have started the movie here.
The hat is important.
Not a bad look.
Mario should have been wearing a hat though. They're filthy. They're grimy. Yeah, this already feels so much more like Super Mario Brothers now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'd be so much more interested if they had just been wearing that an hour ago.
Yeah.
And we're lucky the suits aren't purple and mauve.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a cool tie he's got on. This is one of the lazily mic'd scenes. I think they just, I mean, the guys who have like production experience with movies, you can kind of tell this might have been just get it over with.
All the on-set audio.
Yeah, they're not dubbing it here because probably the actors refuse to come back to do ADR. Like Luigi's rainbow belt. Oh, it's amazing what a costume does for my interest in this. Like,
well, you all of a sudden feel like you're watching the characters now. It's you. Before it was, you just kind of had to take their word for it.
Yeah.
And we actually might get some inspired and purposeful super jumps now.
This is like in the game where they pick up the turtles and carry them around. What are they doing? This is
Get them all
wild.
dancing.
Turn in one direction.
And the music.
Now, this is one of those kind of crazy, kind of wacky things. It's actually kind of fun.
The music kind of sounds like the video game music.
Give her a raw steak. Here's a flank steak. Go for it.
I do like the animatronics on those things.
It is pretty funny. They're actually pretty expressive.
Mm-hmm. Very Henson-esque. Probably Frank Welker doing the voices there too.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or Peter Cullen. Another bit of trivia about the movie. In addition to breaking his finger, Bob Hoskins recalled that he was stabbed 4 times, electrocuted, and nearly drowned. And he says, "That's just what happened to me."
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
And it was Leguizamo that broke Hoskins' fingers. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's pretty rough. She just stabs Yoshi.
Well, by '93, all the kids who grew up on Mario were grown up. So this is awesome. I've never.
So weird.
Elevator music.
That's great. Just kind of lulled them into. They're dancing.
She's got her dinner. These shapes, these pyramid sort of shapes all over, I think are an homage to some of the bitmap graphics. That's kind of an interesting production choice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, allegedly due to drinking on set, John Leguizamo was hit by a car, breaking his leg. You can even see the cast in some of the shots in the movie. So, rough shoot for a lot of these folks. Can you imagine going to a movie set where, as an actor, you're normally pampered, you got makeup people, costume people, you're fed some really good food. Going and breaking bones like regularly, it's like going to war. And then having to come back and keep doing it again and again.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things where, you know, it's there's usually such strict kind of safety controls on a lot of sets, and it's really, you know, because of insurance and how much the movies cost you and all this. But you know, when you hear about these sort of accidents on sets and what that must mean for the state of the production and how haphazard everything must have been for that to be allowed to happen is just mind-boggling. I mean, ordinarily, it's like, you know, you're on set, and very, very rarely will anybody allow an actor to be in a situation where he might get injured like that. I mean, it's so few and far between, but it's just crazy.
Yeah, safety regulations changed drastically after Brandon Lee was killed.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Here we go. Finally psyching us up for it.
Okay.
I hear they're talking. Yeah.
They fly now?
I think it's something about the updraft with this, or he's stuck, or oh no, that's right, his belt's stuck, and he thinks he's flying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, he tricked him.
You know, there's that saying with art that the worst reaction is that it's okay. It's like when somebody looks at a piece of art, whether it's a movie or a painting or whatever, you want them to be, inspired or excited or love it or hate it. Because either way, you're getting a strong response. If they hate it, hating it a lot of times is just as good as something loving it, because you're getting such a visceral response out of somebody. But this whole time I'm thinking with this movie, and we're talking about it, and none of us, I think, are overly entertained, and it's kind of just like, yeah, meh, and I'm thinking that says it all about this movie, because there's so little reaction from any of us going on with this movie about what it is, and I think that's really the problem with it. It's just so weird and so meh. There's nothing that's really extraordinary one way or the other about it.
Yeah, I agree. It could be so bad it's good, but it's not horrible. It's not good. It's just oatmeal.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a good way of putting it.
Oatmeal with sugar.
It's a chicken breast on rice with a Diet Coke.
Yeah, now I wondered about this. John Leguizamo playing Luigi. He was quoted as saying, "You always see a lot of Italians playing Latin people, like Al Pacino did in Scarface. Now it's our turn." Can you imagine Al Pacino as Luigi?
Yeah. There's the mushroom.
There you mushroom go. Picking.
Let's see what it does.
Is he gonna spit fireballs? Is that another blink and you miss it Easter egg that doesn't really lead to anything? Yeah, just meaningless Easter egg. See, in the Sonic movie, I feel like when they do things like that, it's not just a quick nod. It's an actual important, powerful thing.
You have me a lot more intrigued to watch that movie. I think I'm gonna have to rent it or something like that. I think it's out on Amazon now, right?
Yeah, and it's not a masterpiece by any means, but I did numerous times throughout the movie just get the feeling of, oh, that's cool, and then instead of like a quick, like exactly what we just saw, instead of just a quick, oh, cool, mushroom, and then we move on, in Sonic it's more like, oh, that matters.
Yeah.
Because there's so little to go on, so they actually... like Jim Carrey as Robotnik, it's not just he's so much better as Robotnik than what they're giving Hopper here as Koopa, and it actually leads to something. And it's not like Robotnik is this huge, deep character with lots of layers, but in the Sonic movie, they get to it, and it's actually a cool moment when they eventually get to it.
It's Jim Carrey, man. You can't go wrong with Jim Carrey.
It's fantastic. It's one of his best movies in decades, I think.
I gotta see that.
He really is in original form. Like it's Ace Ventura in that movie.
Oh yeah, definitely had to see it now.
Yeah, it's almost like if Ace Ventura had gone bad and just hated nature and animals. That's
funny.
That's who he is. He's like the turn to the dark side Ace Ventura in Sonic.
I saw Ace Ventura basically on the floor in a movie theater because I was just laughing so hard. Just like, forget it.
So this is our Super Mario Brothers / Sonic the Hedgehog commentary. You can cue this up with Sonic the Hedgehog too, I guess.
We'll just turn it into a compare and contrast discussion.
There you go.
I don't know. You guys want to do like a split screen Sonic and Super Mario play by play?
Oh man, this is what they should have done.
Yeah. I will say, I think this commentary is absolutely vital if you're going to watch Super Mario Brothers. We're fixing it in post.
You know, one thing I have to say, I mean, if we're gonna give props to stuff where it's due, Fiona Shaw is delivering in this film. She's not phoning it in. It's like every scene she's in, she's got some presence. I mean, you can tell that she's from like a serious acting background. I mean, she was from Royal Shakespeare Company, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Oh, this was almost an all Latino cast of leads playing Italians. Cheech Marin was offered the role of Mario.
Was he?
Yeah, but turned it down.
Wow. He would actually that would have been a different movie.
Why not just get Cheech and Chong to play Mario and Luigi?
Fantastic. Oh my God, that would be great.
I mean, mushrooms.
I know. That as well.
Missed opportunity.
Hey, no, man, this is Mario.
Mario's not home, man. Oh, I'm reading some of the unpleasant things Bob Hoskins referred to the directors as.
Well, he's got that Cockney thing going. He's got to have some great ones.
Yeah. I won't repeat them here, but very, very colorful. Jump on him. Jump on him.
Stomp? Oh, come on. Give it to us just once.
A kick.
Oh, a kick.
And a little kick, too.
I could see how bones would be broken in this movie. How many injuries do you think he sustained doing that stunt? Because it looked like he hopped off that cable himself. Yeah. They didn't cut from a stuntman.
We can do anything with those tools.
Hill Koopa. Oh, they found it.
It's got the amulet.
He's got a tissue over the... Is he a germaphobe?
I hadn't caught that at all, if that's the case.
Maybe that's why he had that wax in the beginning of the movie.
Oh my Lord.
It just gets weirder and weirder.
It's just, I can't help but think all the injuries sustained every time I see something like this.
Yeah.
Like how many spinal fusions were required after this?
I don't see any stunt people at all.
They're all dead.
Oh, man.
Highest body count in movie history right here.
Well, luckily, I don't think there were any fatalities, just like third-degree burns. That is a lot of people to have sliding on that thing. Oh, you got a duck like in the game?
Mm-hmm.
I love that he's still using his plumbing tools, which wasn't an aspect of the game, but should have been.
Yeah.
There's a wrench in the plans.
So it was Daisy and Peach, I believe, right, in the Mario game. So is his girlfriend Daisy or Peach? Maybe that's a Daisy. Or maybe this is Daisy and the other one's Peach. Did they at least carry over those names?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Samantha Mathis was Daisy. Okay. Just need to double check on that.
And they know when to cut. In terms of like the blue screen, green screen effects, the editors are competent. They know when it's too much and people will roll their eyes and go, oh, that looks so bad. Sometimes you can get around some cheesiness just by cutting, and the editing is just great. Oh, that should have been the that power Nintendo Power Gun.
Yeah.
No one's got a power glove in this movie either. Yeah, I wonder if that's Koopa with his little germaphobe thing, or if that's Hopper going, I don't want to touch this thing.
Oh man, that was bad.
It could have been a fireball, but okay. This would have been after Super Mario 3, so you know, we could have seen the raccoon outfit, the frog outfit. There's actually a lot more in Mario. I was just going by the first game, but counting the second and third games, they could have done a whole movie about part 2, the Dream World.
Yeah.
Oh, Bob.
See, these aren't horrible little sequences, and it's just, it's decent enough. It's just sort of falls flat. It just doesn't ever kind of go anywhere. But I have to say, like, watching this like this again, I mean, everyone's given it their best, and everyone's at least given some effort for whatever reason. But it does strike me as a physical presence. Fiona Shaw, I would have to say, is probably the best cast member. But she's bringing it. But how on earth if you're Dennis Hopper after 17 weeks when it was supposed to be 5, how could you possibly continue to take any of this seriously? Like when the cameras say action, I mean, I can't imagine being in this place, and I'd be just like, oh my God, again? Seriously?
Yeah.
She looks like Bride of Frankenstein now.
Yeah.
That's intentional. Anyone notice the girl in the that sort of tan dress? Every time you see her, she's smoking.
Oh man. Yeah.
So you keep seeing the same street scenes. So this must have been like their one big, huge set they had.
The back lot.
And they're just filming it from like a bunch of different angles.
Yeah, there's a lot of fire involved in this movie for sure. Somebody got burned.
What is that, a bob-omb, right?
Oh, yeah. That's from part 2.
They're winding it up. Yeah.
So that's a rare Easter egg from part 2. Very tiny.
Yeah, it's like they're here occasionally, but they just kind of don't really bother all that much.
Yeah.
This is probably, other than the suits that Mario and Luigi are wearing, that was probably the biggest little Easter egg from the games. Oh, still going on.
Well, and that's like the kind of thing. That's like the scene we just saw where he rescues the girl. I mean, it would have been so easy for them to just throw in the moments of the film where he jumps on the Koopas and, maybe he doesn't flatten them, but they fall or down or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they just never really drive that home.
Like if I could see someone going, well, it doesn't look good. Maybe they tried it and said it doesn't look good, or they thought maybe it won't look good. Then don't do a live action Super Mario movie.
Exactly.
Because everything Sonic does in the game, he does in the movie. Mm-hmm. He might not do it as frequently, but he does it.
Oh, wow. Whoops. Well, there's the end of Fiona Shaw.
Oh.
Yeah.
A full skeleton. What were you saying about you never show a full skeleton?
There you go.
It's kind of a theme of the movie.
Yeah.
I think we need a Donkey Kong prequel after this.
Oh, yeah.
CGI Bob Hoskins.
Could you imagine? Imagine if they were, because I think they're actually doing a 3D animated Mario right now. If I was just out of pure spite, I might go back and ask Bob Hoskins, like, hey, how'd you like to do the voice?
Is Bob still around?
Oh, yeah, he's still around. That'd be hysterical.
It's kind of funny that he's still collecting. Oh, Bob Hoskins is not with us anymore.
Oh, he's not, did he?
No, he passed away in 2014.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No longer collecting royalties for this movie, and that's probably a little peace of mind there for him.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, still making money off this movie as much as you despise it, being part of it, still making money off it? Because I would imagine it was, like, to this day, still selling copies.
Yeah.
People, I mean, we're sitting here watching it. We're curious.
Probably got a couple $100 or something like that every few months.
Yeah. The royalty check. Weird. Is it back in New York?
I think so. Yeah. This is on the other side of the portal again.
Brooklyn.
Oh, de-evolved the guy. He's in a chimp.
Not much of a difference there.
So can I share a personal anecdotal story regarding a chimpanzee?
Yeah, sure.
So this, I mean, might as well, right? So the only time I've ever been in close contact with a chimpanzee in my entire life, at one of the shows I worked on, somebody brought one in, and they're showing it off on the show, and it was there, it was cute and everything, and everybody wanted to go up and play with it and everything, and it was adorable. It was a little it was a very juvenile chimpanzee. And so I'm holding. Hey, can I hold the chimp? And he's good. Just keep him in his thing. It's just so I'm holding him, and I happen to have. I was chewing a piece of gum, and the chimp's sitting there on my lap, looking at me, kind of like looking at my mouth. And before I knew it, he reaches into my mouth, grabs the gum out of my mouth, and puts it in his, and like with his hand. And the guy says, he started dying laughing. He says, "Yep, I was waiting for him to do that any second." So that's my one and only story was with the chimpanzee, was that it reached right into my mouth and grabbed my gum.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
and it was able to chew it without swallow it or something?
Nope. He just put it right in his mouth and started chewing it.
He knew to chew it and not eat it, that it was gum?
Apparently so.
Wow.
They were imitating you. He was imitating you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, either that or maybe he'd had it before somewhere. Who knows? But his handler, the guy, used to start dying laughing. He was like, "Yep, I was waiting for him to do that." And I was like, "Well, thank you for telling me."
Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah.
You can do it back to him if you want it back.
Yeah. He says he can keep it.
Well, they gave Luigi his super jump.
Yeah,
he's got a better jump than Mario in part 2. He's kissing a baby. This Bob-omb is still going. They don't last that long in the game. Oh, devolve. Oh, are we going to finally get the game accurate Koopa? Reebok.
I think they're going to incinerate him first.
Did you see on the bottom of the Bomb's feet, Reebok?
That was good.
Is that the second time he's been launched into one of those?
I think it might have been.
So they're just reshooting previous pages of the rewrite.
Yeah.
Same location.
We're out of script. Just use one of the old ones. Wild.
So you barely get one little look at him as a full dinosaur.
Yeah.
Like Bowser. I didn't picture the climax of the movie being Mario and Luigi shooting Bowser with laser guns.
It's actually, for the day, that's not a bad little effect there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's T-1000-esque.
Yeah. And the rest of the cast in the background celebrating that the movie's on. So.
17 weeks.
They didn't realize they were filming. They just announced, that's a wrap.
That's it. I'm going back to grad school.
17 weeks later.
I'm going to learn a trade. They're already painting over the sign. So I guess his forces can just integrate?
Apparently so. And now we get to see the actual... There we go. There's the king back from the... Was that Lance Henriksen?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yes.
I read in the trivia he met his wife, I believe, on the set, and I thought, when is Lance in this movie? But there he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he met his second wife, Jane Pollock, on the set.
Wow. So I wonder if you were to ask John Leguizamo what he was more embarrassed about, this movie or Spawn, what he'd say.
Has to be this one. Has to be this one.
I think Spawn probably has a better reputation, especially since a lot of people maybe haven't seen Spawn, but they think, hey, Spawn is cool.
Yeah.
I saw Spawn in the theaters when it came out, and kind of like this, I just thought it wasn't good. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't call it horrible, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, definitely. Same.
Definitely didn't take advantage of the potential. Of course, when I saw Spawn, I was expecting something again like The Crow. Just something very visionary.
Like Crow or something closer Matrix. To, Dark Knight or something.
Yeah, Matrix.
So he doesn't... Okay, wow. He didn't stay with Peach, or Daisy, rather.
I guess they wanted a sequel.
Yes. Yeah. Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah. Wow, 3 weeks later. Poor Johnny looks pretty bummed.
Yeah. Maybe it was actually 17 weeks later.
Yeah. The news report's coming out 3 weeks later. That's interesting.
And they're christened the Super Mario Brothers.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
There
Back
we
to
go.
the Future. Sort of a Back to the Future thing there.
Oh, mercy.
Wow. Complete with a Roxette hit song.
Oh, man.
Well, that was Super Mario Brothers.
Ooh. Ow.
I need to walk a little bit.
Definitely not as like legendarily bad as I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the legend has grown larger than the actual movie itself, but Frank Welker right there, and Dan Castellaneta, the voice of Homer Simpson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah. Well, I think we've watched some stuff with like Masters in the Universe was a great one where we were talking because there was so much goofy stuff in this. And what really strikes me is how much of the goofy stuff in this film just totally falls flat. It's just kind of boring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there wasn't even much to laugh at. When we started, and you said it was so bad that it goes back to bad, it might not have ever left bad. there might not have been a rotation there.
Yeah.
It might have just started and stayed bad.
Bad and very little else that was redeeming.
But yeah, let's talk about what's redeeming. Vince, do you want to start off? What do you think was good here?
I don't know. I mean, like the special, not the special effects, but the set, the way they prepare the set. The set was like really good. The cars that those New York cop cars, they did a nice job with that. I mean, whoever worked on the set didn't phone it in. They took their time, and they did a good job with that.
The production design.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the editing, like you said, the editing was good. You couldn't tell that there was no strings. I mean, you could tell it was done really well.
They cut before something looked bad.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of budget, this looks fine. Eric, what's good?
Well, I would have to lean toward production design as well. I thought it was pretty good. I mentioned a couple times during the film, but I think that of all the actors, I think that the one that showed at least the how shall I put it, most discernible investment, I should say, it was Fiona Shaw. Man, she looked like she was given everything. She's pretty talented. I was pretty impressed with that. I think she was owning every scene she was in. So I'd give it that direction. I think if I was going to have to compliment some of the actors.
Yeah, and I felt the magic in the elevator scene. I just started smiling, and I felt like, hey, this is awesome. This is finally Super Mario Brothers. So not just being able to see them in the costumes, but also it was kind of a cool, quirky scene, like where they're rocking the bad guys back and forth. It was interesting.
It's just the writing. It comes down to the writing. Again, if you don't have good writing, you're not going to pull this off. That's a great example. You have, the set is beautiful. Everybody's doing their 110% job, but the writing just falls.
Real quick, I just saw the creatures were all designed by Patrick Tatopoulos, who designed the creatures in Independence Day. He designed Godzilla in the Roland Emmerich Godzilla film. He's designed a lot of creatures in movies.
There you go. A talent. Another person that has talent that worked on this.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's Super Mario Brothers, and I'd always been meaning to watch it, and this is the way. I'm glad I got to watch it. I wouldn't wanted to have watched this on my own or just movie night with Luana, because we would have turned it off after 15 minutes.
Yeah, same thing. I've never seen it. This is my first time.
So even the most worst movies or vanilla oatmeal movies, can be pretty fun. So hopefully we've what is this?
Post-credit scene. Wow, it's really breaking ground, this movie. I mean, how many?
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, the two dudes.
Because Spike and Iggy.
Spike and Iggy, yeah.
Lord.
Cousins. Oh man.
Yeah, that seems off to me. The little post credit, like when you endure something like this, and then they hint like the scene before the credits roll, and then a post credit, and this is decades before Marvel was adding.
Yeah.
Like movies didn't have post credit scenes. To do a further tease at the end of like, there's more to come.
No, everybody was gone from the theater by then. I don't know.
Talk about
what I would have loved to see was like the head of the studio, pop up in the end after that last sequence and just say, just to be clear, there's no chance ever this will have a sequel.
Total somber tone. Yeah, like shuffling papers. We would like to apologize.
On behalf of the studio.
But definite case of truth being stranger than fiction. Again, I'd highly recommend seeing that gaming historian documentary. Very interesting, and it's cool to see how civil, what a civil picture they made. None of that drama behind the scenes showed up on screen here. I didn't see any drunkenness from Leguizamo and Hoskins. It didn't, there was no people giving each other the finger or elbowing each other. Maybe it would have been a more interesting movie, but it's a testament to their professionalism that they were able to still do their job. And so hats off to everyone who was actually able to complete a film, because it is technically a film.
It's a film. It's feature length, that's for sure.
It's without a doubt a feature length film.
Yeah. All, what is it, 112 minutes of it? I also have to point out the obvious professionalism and capability of the editor that managed to edit together a finished film out of this footage.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, the editing crew.
Yeah, I think the editor might have just been the unsung hero of this entire project.
So I'll just close this off with another quote. It's from Rocky Morton, one of the directors. He said, "I was locked out of the editing room. I had to get the DGA to come help me get back into the editing room. I tried to get the editor to cut it digitally, but they refused. They wanted to edit on Moviola and Steenbeck machines, so the process was laboriously slow, which didn't help us get the special effect cut in on time. So they locked him out."
That explains a lot.
And with that, Eric, thanks so much, and Vince, thank you as well for joining on this bad movie, oatmeal movie commentary.
Oh my goodness! Yes, thank you. Well, thanks for putting this on, and thanks for sticking it out with us. I feel like we all need a merit badge.
Definitely. I feel like I need to fire up the emulator and play some Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
I think we've all learned that.
Download an emulator. So.
I think we've all learned that. So thanks everyone out there for listening along, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.